Well, good evening, and thank you for tuning in online tonight for our Wednesday night broadcast at Victory. We're so thankful for each and every one of you that tunes in for all our services, whether it be on Sundays or Wednesdays. We're just very, very thankful for that. One of the things that we strive to do here is to develop a deeper walk with the Lord as well as deeper connections with one another. And we do that through groups, small group settings that meet here on campus. And we would love for you to be a part of these groups if you aren't already. We have multiple times that they meet, Sundays and on Wednesdays. Tonight, right after we hear from some special music from our worship team, we're going to move into one of those groups and let you hear and experience the teaching. We hope and trust it's a blessing to you tonight. Thank you so much again for being here this evening.
The song talks about that. The healer in the grave was able to break every chain. I wonder if the man who once was blind watched the sunset on that Friday like it was the last time as he waited for his sight to fade, 'cause the healer was in the grave.
I wonder if the leper shook with fear as he touched his children's faces. Was he fighting back the tears? Would he once again be marked by shame? 'Cause the healer was in.
Like he knew he'd be returning to the life that he had left, to that hopeless place he used to lay, 'cause the healer was in the grave. But the healer in the grave, oh, he did not stay. He conquered death forever, breaking every chain. In overcoming power, he rose on that third day when the stone was rolled away. It ended every question, it settled every doubt. Sure, they put him in the tomb, but you can't count him out. Oh, the healer in the grave, oh, he did not stay. He conquered death forever, breaking every chain. In overcoming power, he arose on that third day when the stone was rolled away. When the stone was rolled away. When the stone was rolled away.
This is a passage that takes us to a man who didn't, you know what? We need to turn this on, don't we? You already did? Well, good afternoon, those who are tuning in. Thanks for being part of class. Where did you start at?
Right after Genesis.
Right after Genesis. Okay, so Genesis 29. This passage, by the way, so next week, I think I'll be starting the new series. All right? But that is to be determined also because of a couple of things. Anyway, this passage right here in Genesis 29 takes us to a man who didn't always get the breaks that one would like to get, okay? As a matter of fact, this guy's life was full of ups and downs, and mostly full of downs, to be honest with you. I mean, there was a lot of down for this guy named Jacob, okay? A lot of things in this man's life, honestly, that would make most of us give up on God. that would quit on him, so to speak. And so let's take a look real quick. And by the way, this is a very super simple thought for today. I'm going to express one simple truth, all right? And try to put it on the bottom shelf where we all can reach up there and grab it, all right, and make application. So let me start off by asking this question. Has there ever been a person in your life, or people perhaps in your life, that you never really planned on being there? Maybe it's a son-in-law, okay? Maybe it's a mother-in-law. Maybe it's a whoever, a co-worker. Maybe it's a grandson or granddaughter-in-law. Somebody put in there and you never saw it coming, and it really wasn't like you kind of wanted it. Some perhaps maybe that they just kind of ended up in your life. All right, so the first thought is this, talking about people right here. Someone perhaps that you really didn't choose, to be a part of your life. You didn't choose them necessarily to be a part of it or involved with it, that it just happened. Maybe even some people that you really don't want to be a part of your life. And that happens, right? I mean, we have situations that take place, and all of a sudden we're now, I mean, whether we like it or not, we're up to here our eyeballs in a relationship of some sort with somebody that if we had our choosing, we would say, nah, I pass. Next, and so that's what we want to talk about today. And what if that person was your spouse, though? Tough, wasn't it? Listen to this story, and by the way, this is just one of many things that Jacob faced in his life. Long story, but Jacob fell in love with a cute little girl named Rachel, right? Head over heels. He was smitten, She had him right where she wanted him, okay? He's fallen head over heels. He's in love with her. He's willing to do whatever it takes. To work for 7 years, right? To get this girl's hand in marriage. But the problem is this cute little girl named Rachel had a not so cute little sister named Leah. All right, Genesis 29, look at verse 16, all right? We'll read a little bit of the story here. The account says that, verse 15, Laban said to Jacob, because thou art my brother, shouldest thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? And so he came into the area, right? Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. And Jacob loved Rachel and said, I'll serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. By the way, I'm looking for that guy that wants my daughter, right? Hey, preacher, 7 years, I'll be your servant, right? At the end of 7 years, I might be willing to give the guy my hand of blessing, right? And Laban said, well, it is better that I give her to thee than that I should give her to another man. Deal. That was what he's saying. Abide with me. Done. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel. And the Bible says that because of his love for her, it says they seen but a few days for the love that he had to her. And Jacob said to Laban, hey, time to ante up. Time to pay. I'm collecting, all right? 7 years is done. Where's my daughter? And where's my wife? Jacob said to Laban, give me thy wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. So he's going to go in and marry her, all right? Now, so far so good. He's about to marry the girl of his dreams. I mean, he worked 7 years for her, but not quite like he planned it, all right? Let's look at verse 22. That Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. Verse 23. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah, his daughter. He brought her to him, and he went in unto her. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah's handmaid for an handmaid. It came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this thou hast done unto me? Did I not serve with thee for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? Laban said, it must not be done so in our country, to give the younger before the firstborn. So he was wed her. Now there was a lot of cultural differences here that allowed to happen. We're thinking about our traditional marriages. How would that happen, right? Like, no way, Jose. But in their culture and the way they did their marriages, he was unbeknownst married to Leah now and not to Rachel. Are you kidding me? And this is not what he signed up for. It would be like me going to marry my wife and then realize all of a sudden I actually married her sister. And I'm like, wait a minute. It's weird, right? So look at verse 27. Or Laban said in 26, he said, this is not the way we do it here, buddy. You marry the oldest daughter first, and then we give away the second daughter. Don't you think that might have been good information to have? Negotiating a contract? I mean, wouldn't it have been lawful or better for Laban to say, that's fine, but you do understand Leah's got to go first. If I was Jacob, I would have been trying to find Leah somebody. You know what I'm saying? I would have paid a buddy, right? Hey, come marry this girl. I've got to have, whatever, all right? Probably shouldn't have said it like that. But anyway, find her a boyfriend. Find her somebody. Find her a man. Well, that's not the case. So Laban says, that's not the way we do it here. He says, now you fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou hast served with me yet 7 other years. And I tell you what, we'll give you Leah. You serve me another 7 years, and then you can have, Rachel. Now, this is a testimony to Jacob's work ethic. He was valued, obviously, to Laban. He brought value to the equation. Otherwise, he would like 3.5 years. Man, you can have her. Get out of here. You know what I mean? So he was well liked and worked hard. And Laban benefited greatly. He increased greatly because of Jacob. But he said, hey, give me another 7 years and I'll give you my wife. So Jacob did so, and he fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel's daughter to his wife also. 14 years he worked for the dowry to marry her. And Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah his handmaid to be her maid. And he went also unto Rachel, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served with him yet 7 other years. I don't have time to go into all the details of the hurt. Some of you ladies have already done some deep studies into this relationship here. But the hurt that Leah must have felt or experienced. Matter of fact, the very next verse says in 31, and the Lord saw that Leah was hated. And that's tough. She was despised. She was hated. I mean, it wasn't like she was wanted. An unloved Leah married to a man in love with another woman. The point I'm trying to make here is this. Sometimes God allows people in our lives that we don't necessarily choose or don't even want in our lives. But that wasn't all. So Jacob not only had people issues, but he also had place issues. All right? So what do you mean by that? God calls him on his journey to wander in some places. And so here's another question for us this morning. You ever woke up one day yourself and asked the questions like, how did I get here? What in the world am I doing here? How long am I going to have to stay here? And sometimes things just evolve that way. Sometimes it's because of the people in our life that puts us in a situation that keeps us there longer than we thought, or a place in life. See, sometimes God chooses places in life. Sometimes they're locations. Sometimes they're situations, okay, that he puts us in, places that he puts us in. You've heard that phrase, she's not in a good place right now? You know what I mean? What does that mean? What would I say when I mean by that? What do I mean when I say that? She's not in a good place. He's not in a good place right now. Their situation, right? Yeah, not that they're not. Now, it could be where they're living is not in a good place. That'd be different, right? But her situation, her life deal is going on, right? So if we flip over to chapter number 32, we'll see one instance where God places the same man to be in, a place that Jacob would not have chosen to go to if he had the choice. You see, sometimes God places us in places in life that if it was up to us, we wouldn't choose it. We're like, no, thank you. Just like the people, we'll pass on this one. Look at chapter 32. Look at verse 3. We'll read 3 or 4 verses right here. So Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother unto the land of Seir, the country of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, Thus shall you speak unto my lord Esau. Thy servant Jacob saith thus, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now. And I have oxen and asses and flocks and men servants and women servants. And I have sent to tell my lord that I may find grace in thy sight. Now, why would he be saying this, by the way? What's the story here? What's the background? Okay. So Jacob's brother, right, was deceived. And as a result of that, he's had a target on his back ever since, right? Fearful, scared to death that Esau was going to hunt him down and kill him, because he was. Esau was after him, looking for him. And so Jacob is removed from the equation. He's out and about. He's working, for his wives. And he's coming back to a situation now where they find out that Esau's tribe is ahead, and there's a situation there. There's going to have to be some interaction. It's kind of like the Christmas of ex husband or ex-wife that you got to go to, and everybody's going to be there. You do it for the kids' sake, and the exes are going to be there. It's like, okay, this is not going to be good. How are we going to handle this? Can we be adults here? You know how all that goes, right? Y'all, maybe you've had friends or family even that's gone through that. But the interaction is coming. It's really unavoidable unless somebody just doesn't show up, which, when again, is not acceptable, right? So that's what's going on here. There's just going to be this interaction. And so Jacob's like, and he's already accumulated, a pretty good bit of wealth as a result of the relationship that he had with Laban there and all the flocks. You remember the ring straked and ma'am?
The spotted.
That's right. The cows that were solid and those that weren't, and so he's amassed a pretty good bit of wealth here. And so he's trying to win his brother over, and send him some gifts. I like gifts. If my brother's mad at me, I wouldn't mind him sending me a gift, right? So, hey, here's a token of a peace offering, right? That's kind of what's going on right here. And he's like, hey, look, do this. Send this ahead of us. And so you can say, this comes from your brother. He wants to find grace in your sight. He's trying to make things right. He's feeling it out. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him. Jacob, sir? Yeah, how did it go? Well, we saw Esau. You did. How did he receive it? He'd like to see you. And 400 other men with him. What? So he's got this big, oh my word, what's going on? He's fixing to come in and alliterate me, right? Verse 7 tells it all. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and pretty distressed. So he divided the people that were with him, the flocks and the herds, and the camel into two bands. And so he takes a plan of action right there. He's like, man, I don't want them to wipe out the whole group. We'll put somebody in front of them. If they wipe them out, we can run. So you don't know exactly what's going on right now, okay? So that's where we find him right now. And this was a big deal. When we're talking about dividing into two bands right here, Jacob, years earlier, we just had mentioned, had deceived his brother Esau more than once, by the way. It was a one-time deal. So Esau was at one time looking to kill his brother. Fast forward to our current text right here. And Jacob sends his family ahead in different groups. And Jacob stays back. And Jacob's left alone in a place to later be called Peniel. All right? Verse number 23. Look at chapter 32. Look at verse 23 now. Let's skip forward a little bit. It says that he took them, his family, and he sent them over the brook, and he sent over that he had. And Jacob, verse 24, was left alone. And there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, it says he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. So all night long, Jacob's wrestling with a man. Many believe it's Jesus Christ incarnate. But it got to the point where Jacob suffered an injury to his leg, all right? And it was so significant that he would walk with a limp the rest of his whole life, all right? Verse 31 says, he passed over Peniel, the sun rose of him, and he halted upon his thigh. So this guy can't catch a break. All right, he's been deceived. Now he's getting what's coming to him, right? I mean, he had deceived his brother. He's trying to marry his wife. Well, then Laban deceived him. Said, no, you can have her, but after you do this, and another 7 years. And so now it seems that every direction he's turning, every decision he's making, ends up not the way left up to him he would have chosen. I've been there, hadn't you? I ended up in a place, or people in my life, that if it's up to me, I would not have chosen this. I wouldn't have chosen that route. Here's the whole premise for the lesson today, all right? It's often the people, the places, and or the problems that we desire the least that God uses to bless us with the most. I'll say it again. It's often the people, the places, and or the problems that we desire the least that God ends up blessing us with the most. And we see the example right here, all right? Leah wasn't the girl that Jacob worked 7 years for her hand in marriage. Yet, Leah was the one that bore him the most sons. And that's a very big deal in this economy, okay? The amount of sons that one had often determined the legacy, it determined the wealth, it determined the power of a man. The more man children you could have, the greater of a man that you were. Listen as I read in chapter 35, I'll just read it. In verse 23 it says, the sons of Leah, Reuben. Now pay attention to these names. These aren't some obscure names in Scripture that you never read before. The sons of Leah, the one that Jacob didn't want to marry initially or work for. Here are her sons, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. And those were 6 sons from her directly. By the way, who were those guys? The 12 tribes of Israel. You ever heard 12 tribes of Israel? Boom, shakalaka. Those were the ones, and they didn't come from Rachel. They came from Leah, the unwanted. Verse 24, the sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. All right? 2 were from her directly. Then in the next 2 verses, we see that each handmaid also bore him 2 sons. Verse 25, the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. And in verse 26, the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad, Asher. These were the sons of Jacob, which were born to him in Paddan Aram. So the 12 tribes of Israel, huge, all right? Bringing the total to the 12 right here. So here's the deal. The person, the woman that Jacob did not want, that did not choose, was actually the one that God used to give Jacob the lion's share of his offspring. As a matter of fact, when Jacob heads to Egypt to see his son Joseph, you know the story, right? Joseph is there in Egypt and goes through all the issues, and he brings his dad because of the famine. When Jacob goes to Egypt to see Joseph, listen to these stats. I have to go all the way to the end of Genesis chapter 46. These be the sons of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob in Paddan Aram with his daughter Dinah. All the souls of his sons and his daughters were 30 and 3. So 33, all right? And then so verse 22 says, these are the sons of Rachel, which were born to Jacob. All the souls were 14. So more than double, almost 3 times as many offspring and things like that came from Leah, the one that he didn't choose. And God blessed him with. So the offspring more than doubled that. Church, listen to me again. Many times the people we desire the least, God uses to bless us with the most. So in every situation, we must choose to honor God, right? We have to. Even if we didn't choose that particular, it's a choice that we have to make now before the situation ever comes to light, by the way. We can't decide when in the heat of the battle that we're going to choose God. You know, my wife and I, we have this conversation every now and then, especially after I preach a funeral of a young person or something. I usually bring it up. She doesn't like to talk about it, but I'm like, honey, if this were us and we were to lose one of our children, let's determine right now that we're going to honor God through that time. Now, I don't know how we're going to handle it if that were to ever happen. I don't know how we would deal with it. I'd like to think that because we have decided ahead of time, we've discussed it before it ever took place, We're going to honor God through this difficult time. We're going to elevate Him. We're going to lift Him up. We're going to count on Him as grace and Him being Lord of all. My wife, she struggles with that. She's like, I don't know, Derek, how I don't know if I could ever handle that. I said, well, we don't know now, but the grace will be there when we need it, based on what I read in Scripture and based on what I've experienced in people's lives like y'all. Doesn't mean we're going to handle it properly, but at least I'm preparing my heart and my mind now, if in fact that were to take place. I was already thinking, all right, nope, I'm going to honor God with this right here, right? Now, some people don't even like to talk about that because if I talk about it, it's going to come true. And that's not, I don't think that's the best way to do that either, because I don't believe in luck or anything like that. Now, let's revisit the place of Peniel, where Jacob wrestled one that was much greater than him, all right? Back to chapter 32. Look at verse 25 again. He says there, when he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint. He wrestled with him, and he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. He said to him, what is thy name? He said, Jacob. And he said, here's the blessing, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince thou hast power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. Think about what he's being told right here. This is big. Jacob asked him and said, tell me, I pray thee, thy name. He said, wherefore is it thou dost ask my name? And he says, and he blessed him there. Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. So even though we see that Peniel wasn't the place that Jacob would have chosen to abide by himself for, right? Had he known he would have been engaged in an all-night fight, he would have chosen that. And then he'd live for the rest of his life. He didn't come out of it unscathed. There was a stark reminder every time he walked around. Hey, what happened to your leg there? Long story. Long fight, long night. I'm sorry? Yeah, he had opportunity time and time again to talk about that. And we see the truth surface again that I'm trying to emphasize today. Many times it's the places in life that we desire the least that God blesses us with the most. Every situation, again, we must choose to honor God. People come to me, I'm dealing with a situation right now. Well, this family does not want to be here. Not here like at Victory, but in this situation in their life, this place in life. Heartbroken. Tears streaming down her face this week as I counseled. And it's hard to be able to say, hey, the preacher answer is, well, God knew this was going to take place, and we just got to, now that's true, right? That's the truth of the matter. But people who know that truth in their hearts often has a hard time of accepting that truth when it's stated at a time of hurt, at a time of pain, at a time of fear, at a time of emotional overwhelming, right? So we do stuff to remind them of that, but we try to move them to a point and say, it's not going to stay like this forever. That's the counsel I have to go to, right? Listen, we're going to get through this. God's going to help us. We're going to get through this. It's going to be hard right now. There's going to be some dark days ahead. I just try to be honest. There's going to be some tough days. I mean, some really tough days. But we want to honor God with our life. Yes, sir. So we're going to have to go through some places. We have some people in our life we didn't choose. God places them there or allows them to come in our life. Let me clarify too, by the way. God doesn't always place people in our life that are there. He's aware of it. Doesn't mean He necessarily places them there. Right? For instance, let's say your daughter goes and marries a guy who she's head over heels with. She thinks he's the one, and that wasn't God's will for her life, perfect plan, But because of His permissive will, He allowed her to do that. Took place, the decision that she made. Well, that person was brought into your life. Wasn't God saying, "Here's who I want in your life. Here's who I'm allowing in your life because of the decision that your daughter made or your son made for his wife." Does that make sense? And so just because they're there or because of the situation in their life doesn't mean that God put it there. And I think the statement that I've made here is not saying that. I don't want you to be muddy there. I've said the places, many times it's the places that we desire the least that God blesses us with the most. Many times it's the people in our life or the problems in our life that we desire the least that God blesses us with the most. Doesn't mean that He puts them there, okay? Does that make sense? So we can't run to and say, well, I don't know why, He married her. That doesn't make sense to me. He was totally out of God's will when He did that. But God put her there for a reason. No, not necessarily. He allowed her to be there for a reason. Does that make sense? So, as a result of that, He still can use her in our lives. Or us in their lives. Does that make sense? So He's got a lot bigger thing going on than these little bitty eyes can see. But in every situation we have to choose to honor God. So let me say this in closing. Or let me ask you first. What are your thoughts there? Let's discuss that for a second. We've got a couple minutes here. What do you hear me saying before I wrap it up?
I believe it.
You believe it? What do you believe?
I believe both aspects. I believe that God does put people in your life for certain reasons.
Okay, I grant
I
it.
also believe that He allows elements to. And a good example is my son. Because He allowed His first wife to be there when we believed that she wasn't the right person. But because she was in his life, he grew in a lot of aspects. She pushed him to finish college, and he got his degree. And that was, in my opinion, probably the reason why it all happened. I mean, that's what goes on in my head.
Well, but so let's not skew that though, right? With saying, well, God worked this out so He would get His degree. I'm not saying you said that, but we got to be careful in saying that. It goes to this point right here. Just because that person's in there doesn't mean that God was through, and God can still use the situation, right? God still used Leah, even though that wasn't Jacob's plan, right? The place of Peniel, whatever. So, you were going to say something, Miss Argo, I think. Did I hear you say something?
She just said speak up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Speak up, okay? I thought you were saying something. Okay, so you said speak up. Somebody else have a thought here? Yes, ma'am.
We've got to look beyond current circumstances, believing that there's something beyond that, or wherever we are now, no matter how difficult it is. If we're believers and we have faith, we got to believe that we're going to come through this storm, and we just got to persevere. Jacob, in the end, won out, did he not?
Yeah, sure.
He went through a lot of trials and tribulations, but in the end, God brought him through all that.
You were going to say something, Michelle?
The first thing I thought of was, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God.
And are called according to His purpose.
All according to His purpose.
Yeah.
It's His purpose, not ours. The other thing is, in thinking of Leah, like it makes you feel sad for her. And if you notice, she named the boys, maybe my husband will love me.
Yeah, the names. It's a great study, by the way.
When she got to Judah and she said, I will praise God, she stopped looking at what was happening. And who's Judah?
Exactly.
It's the lion.
And the lion, the lineage, Christ.
And not the others.
Yeah, good point there. Yeah, she definitely struggled, and you could tell by the names of her kids where she was at in life, and not accepting it. But she did come to a point where some victory in her life. You could actually teach this from a different angle, and from Leah's vantage point, and say that God brought Jacob into my life. You know what I'm saying? We look at Leah and her life kind of as a negative as far as Jacob is concerned, but Leah, he was a good thing. It was a good thing for her. So, maybe God was doing more for Leah than he was for Jacob. We just don't know exactly. We can't get in the mind of God and say, here's what God was doing here. We're in dangerous ground. Whenever I preach or teach, I strive not to say, well, here's what God was thinking, because I have no idea what God was thinking, Here's what I can learn from this. Maybe this is what God was wanting to show me at this particular time, but to say that this is what God's thinking, we're on dangerous ground there. What about an unwanted child? Unwanted grandchild? Unwanted great-grandchild? Unplanned pregnancy. People, they don't want to be at that place in life, but hey, that baby didn't make that choice, and all of a sudden, there's a lot of joy that it can bring, right? So the situation may not be the way we chose, but God can still use that to bless us the most with, right? So we have to look at every aspect of that. So let me say this in closing then. We got 5 minutes before our bell rings. Life is full of mountains and valleys, right? We all are aware of that. Most of us enjoy the mountaintop views, right? Those are the ones that get posted on Instagram and social media and things like that. Look at my view, it's overlooking this beautiful valley or whatever. And that's okay. They are great. We should enjoy the mountaintop views. We should picture them. We should burn them in our minds. We should celebrate the wins, right, on top. But in the valley is where the fruit's grown and produced. You're not going to see an awful lot of apple orchards on top of a mountain. Might be on the side of the mountain a little bit, but down in the valley, not on the mountaintops, because it's rough up there. Wind's blowing, a little barren. Now, we don't have mountains around here, do we? Y'all from Colorado out there. We don't, huh? Yeah, we think we have mountains, you know what I mean? We got little hills over here. We don't have mountains. And so anything you see on the East Coast, yeah, they might have some orchards on some of these little hills down here, but not at the top. Yes, ma'am?
It says in the valley, you restore my soul.
That's exactly right.
But that is not an easy thing. It has to be a choice to lean on Him really hard and let Him restore your soul, because you're in a place that, like you said, you don't want to be there.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Good input. So whether it's on the mountain or whether it's in the valley, that we have to choose to honor God. This is the whole premise today, right? Learn to honor Him regardless of the people, the problems, or the places we find ourselves in. The ones we wouldn't choose, but God will help us bless them. As for me and my house, Joshua says, we will serve the Lord, right? And choose to honor God. So hopefully that might be an encouragement to you at the current place in life, or maybe in the days ahead. No one likes to think about the valleys ahead, do we? We don't plan for the valleys. We can try to prepare for the valleys, but no one has ever said, after we get through the new year, I'm just going to go ahead and plan a little downtime, a little depression, I'm going to plan this valley, because we hadn't had a valley in a while. I just want to make sure we keep grounded. No, but you do prepare for them. Yes, ma'am. You're okay.
I had a pulmonary embolism, and I coded 3 times, which means that I was gone. And they told Nelson I wasn't going to make it. But I didn't. But it has changed my perspective. It has, I don't have my full mind back. But I see God everywhere, and I praise Him, even in these big situations. I have one now that kind of bothers me. I've been reading a children's book about the Bible stories to my 8-year-old granddaughter, and she always likes to read the one about.
We hope that was an encouragement to you tonight. you may want to know more information. Maybe you have some questions. Maybe you'd like to pray with somebody and talk to somebody about some spiritual matters in your life. We have a pastoral care line, and we would love for you to be able to call. We have pastors standing by right now to be able to take those calls and assist you. We also have Wednesday night program for our teens as well as our young people. We have an Awana program here, and perhaps you or someone you know might like to be a part of that. You can find this and a whole lot more information on our website, VictoryBaptist.Church. God bless you and have a great evening.